with a sly wink. He was truly the most stubborn human being I ever encountered. I loved him. And he was even more stubborn than Jimmy, Wayne, Bill Ginty, Dickie Walters, Joey Walters, Jerry Shea, the Unholies, the Guards, the Death Crew, and the rest of the characters that passed through my life who thrived on good fights. Mike Harkins was the brainchild of the entire legislative reapportionment plan. He was Clay Harrison's right-hand man and secret weapon, and turned out to be the author of the secret sword that presented to Cap that final night that drew the final line, allowing both of us to become state legislators. In the meantime, back at the dollhouse, I was one sick pup. I had colitis for 6 straight weeks. I couldn't put a drink with alcohol in it to my lips without throwing up. I couldn't eat, and everything I did eat went straight through. I pretended to be cool, but I knew payback is a bitch, and I was totally caught up in it. The adrenaline was incredible, irresistible, compulsive. It went like this. Ring ring at 11:55 p.m., January 10th, Cap Benson on the other line. Congratulations, you got a seat to run for. How about Pete, I said. So does he, you both have a clean shot. I thanked him profusely. I had a moment alone, I had a good cry, and then I called Pete. I sure am glad I don't have to run against you, I said with relief. Pete said the same thing to me, and we both went off on different campaigns in different directions, and we both were elected. The colitis went away abruptly the very next day, and so did my not drinking thing. Old friends matter. Young Republicans, Mike, Will, Larry, and other delightful folks that I knew, were the most exotic band of warriors I had ever seen in action. Daily political adventure was our real life. It wasn't just about scams and stings. The everyday life results were real. November came. The little people won. Everybody who was in the Republican Party won that year. It was a Republican sweep. Nixon was president. The Delaware legislature was crowded with new kids on the block. After the election, young Republicans continued to meet on a regular basis in a club-like fraternity atmosphere. This was when we met the female politicians in large numbers. They could really hold their own. They talked like DIs at PI. They said fuck and drank with the boys. In the beginning, we drank lots of drafts and had lots of laughs. And now it was martinis, Manhattans, and stingers. For instance, at a Friday happy hour, it went like this, over vodka and ice. Mike, National Young Republicans are like the National Senior Party farm team. Hi, Larry. Get him a ginger ale, please. Larry didn't drink. Pointing to Larry. Mike went on. The seniors here in Delaware got involved in YR national politics years ago. And look how many of us are now serving in public office today. Larry was elected Register of Wills. Willie is the county chairman. You're in the state legislature. And look at all the other friends we got elected. It was a clean sweep, and it works nationally the same way. Hi, Willie. 3 rum and tonics, please. Oh, 1 ginger ale for Larry. And then Mike continued. Years ago, a group of conservative young Republicans, nicknamed Old Friends, took over the entire National Republican Party. They supported Goldwater. They supported him for president in 1964. The entire YR political campaign apparatus was led by a wily young guru named Clifton White, who wrote the book Speech 3505. He laid out the entire plan that appealed to most conservative elements of the party. They then sponsored young guys in their own states to run in their own particular way, and they all eventually would become leaders in the national conservative movement. It got so strong, they nominated Goldwater without a contest in 1964, except for Rockefeller. And now they're in absolute control throughout the entire country. And don't think they are, because it's still going on today, and it's called by a lot of different names, but it was still the same people. They served in the legislatures, the county seats, the minor judgeships. Some made it into Congress early. Some were state officials appointed by friendly governors. One was an attorney general, and they're going to nominate Reagan next time around, said Mike. Reagan? Next time? No shit. Who's Reagan? We queried. 3 more rum. 1 ginger ale for Larry, please. Mike continued with his national YR story. At this particular time, the Western Party of the United States owns all the power in the National Young Republicans. California was the breeding ground for Western conservatism. He explained how the subversive right-wingers we called ratfinks sang racist songs in the hotel rooms at the national YR meetings in the party atmosphere, with members from all over the country rollicking with hilarity. Larry and Willie were rollicking the barmaid. Larry continued over Larry and Willie's rollick. It turned me off, and it turned off the senior party leaders here in Delaware. When the czars were young, they were interested in breaking into this national conservative farm team and tried many times without success. They knew full well that whoever controlled the National Young Republicans would eventually control the senior Republican Party and the presidential nomination, and eventually would become the power behind the national political throne. Suddenly, everyone stopped, looked, and listened to Mike. Are you kidding? The power behind the entire throne? Sounds like bullshit, doesn't it? But believe me, it's true. I believed, Larry believed, Willie believed, and Mike convinced some of the other crazies at the bar that it was possible for us to break into these conservative bastions, party with the big guys, and infiltrate by personality alone. Hell, we can win an election on a national committee and maybe even get one of our own guys elected on a national YR ticket. 3 more rum and tonics and another ginger ale for Larry, please. It was agreed a good place to start would be national treasurer. Treasurers always became the next chairman. But I pleaded to Mike, who pays the freight? Mike went on explaining that czars in Delaware already failed in this big plan once because they made a mistake and sided with Rockefeller in New York, Scranton, Pennsylvania, and the other moderates throughout northeastern USA. They tried to knock off Goldwater and they failed. They then tried to overthrow the conservative hold on the Young Republican National Committee. They had a few minor successes. They made some new friends, but the philosophy between the liberals and conservatives was so totally breached after Goldwater, it was not repairable, and it hasn't been to this day. Mike insisted another combination of young pals could put together another run for a takeover. We should begin with treasurer, he said. I was breathing hard. What a great scam. It could result in nominating the President of the United States someday. We drank, we talked, we plotted, and we drank, and we talked, and we plotted for weeks. And then try to take a guess who became the candidate for treasurer. These were the combustible ingredients. There were several key and absolutely necessary ingredients to any political campaign. They are interrelated and interdependent. Without one, no campaign can stand up to the process. Number 1 ingredient, plenty of money. Big time campaigns take big time money. Traveling expenses alone is a killer. Long distance phone calls, and don't forget the booze. It takes buku bucks to launch a big time national campaign. Mike had the contacts for the big time bucks. He knew the big guys in the political community who weren't just talking big, they were actually rich guys who were talking turkey. And talking turkey is when you can write out checks for $3,000 each for 15 straight minutes, hand the whole bunch over and say, fill in the name. And that's not a joke. That actually happened. I watched the process once and was absolutely baffled by all this gold. And it was free, easy to get. All you needed was a Republican purpose. Nominating President of the United States seemed like a reasonable Republican purpose to the czars, and they knew the long-range possibility and benefits and were willing to bet on the crazies. Czars knew that if you throw enough shit against the wall, some of it actually sticks. Mike raised the money. Larry became keeper of the gold. We all trusted Larry because he didn't drink. He always kept the money in his pocket. He was the cheapest son of a bitch I ever met. He wouldn't cut me a break. He wouldn't buy me a drink. Told everybody, buy your own fucking drinks. And he wouldn't pay for one single drink for the whole campaign. He'd pay for anything else, but he wouldn't pay for one damn drink. I was really good at conning him, but I really loved Larry like a brother. And he was a total warrior in scholarly sheepskin, hilariously funny, just like Willie. He was elected county register of wills, and he was an idealist. Actually, this description fit just about all my new political friends in Delaware. We were all idealists. We had an extremely practical way of expressing our ideals. It was going for gold. Gold was real. Money was the real power, not an illusion. Frankly, I never understood this gold thing. I never understood the illusion. I actually thought they were in the political business solely to win. I thought they had the adrenal rush like I did. I didn't realize that this was their way of making a living as young lawyers. This was their way of networking as professional pals. This is their way of being businessmen and businesswomen. I didn't understand they didn't put their daily bread on the line to lose, like I was willing to do. While mixing politically throughout the country, I told everybody I met, and the easy ones twice, about my concept of First National Retirement Systems. A national, individual, tax-free retirement savings account for every working American. Someday maybe replacing even the Social Security system. It was great talking tough in the caucuses. Conservatives loved a talking tough. And this particular talking tough refused to answer the stupid fucking questions they asked about foreign policy, or would agree that the zip code was a communist plot. After a few trips, woo, Mike, they really are fucking nuts. I told you, he said. Ingredient number 2, a political guru. One of the most idealistic politicians ever ran for governor in Delaware. His name was Russ Peterson, a liberal, a PhD scholar. He was a scientist at the DuPont Company, an egghead, a brainy guy with a very wimpy but very sincere smile, who surrounded himself with intellectuals. His friends were all eggheads also, and their women carried big pocketbooks and they wore low-heeled shoes while all dressed up in pink and apple green and blue trimmings as their uniform of the day. We called them the Greenville Bunch. Most successful politicians came up through the ranks as old-time ward leader types, a particular type that gets along with the rank and file just for style. Their whole political life is trading, bargaining, and negotiating deals. They are called hacks. A hack is not an insult. It's how you get through the deal. You hack. Russ was no hack. Therefore, he didn't have much political clout with the ordinary, raucous populace before he ran for office. He needed a young hack. We needed a guru. A young liberal, New England column, was recruited and brought into town to help Russ with strategy. He was a YR. He was a friend of Mike Harkin's. His name, Evan Dobell. Evan was experienced in election politics and a young Republican. He knew all the national goings-ons between the conservatives and liberals throughout the Republican Party, throughout the country. He was a sort of YR guru from the northeastern states. He was a seasoned warrior from many previous campaigns. He was 21 years old.